is your Filipino radio experience in Las Vegas. PHLV Radio.
On the Dot is presented by Benjamina Mia Casino. Licensed real estate professional since 2008. License number S01669991 LLC. Moving to Vegas? There's no better time than now. Where can you find a 3-bedroom home with a balcony and patio? With upgraded flooring, all appliances included. Newly painted, move-in ready. With a community park and pool for under $400,000. Not to mention that it is so convenient to shopping, schools, entertainment. And of course, what is Vegas without the Strip? So what are you waiting for? Call Benjamina today at 702-281-9063. Mia is also on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. You can also visit www.benjaminamiacasino.com and view available homes anytime. Remember, the house wins when you bet on Benjamina Mia Casino. It's a lunch hour in Vegas, and we're on the dot with Dot and Mia here on PHLV Radio.
Hello, it's lunch hour in Vegas. Welcome to On the Dot. My name is Dorothy Tom, and this show is brought to you by PHLV Radio, of course, and the University of the Philippines Alumni Association of Nevada. And this is your holding space for anything about curiosity. This is where you hear conversations and insights and intuition, positivity, and possibilities. Please welcome my partner in fun, Miss Mia Casino. Yay! Hi,
Hello,
Mia.
everyone. Welcome to our third episode for the
Is
month
it
of
the
May.
third?
For the month of May, yeah. The Mother's Day month episode.
Okay.
The other kind of mother.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
I like your shirt, Mia.
Thank you. It's our new shirt.
All right. All right.
My new
So,
shirt.
Your new shirt. So, we have a very special person here.
Yes, the other kind of mother. Our title for today's episode is When You Can't Run to Mama. What do you do, Dot, when you can't run to Mama?
I run to Papa.
And to Ates.
And to
And
Kuya.
to
Yeah,
Kuyas. Yes.
Or the Lola.
What if you don't have any of those?
Well, you just have to stand on your own. You run to God.
That's
That's the
true.
first. That's the first
Yes.
place. That's your first go-to.
Correct.
Yeah. So,
That's actually number one. That
That's
should
number
be number one.
okay. So you want to introduce her?
Yes, our guest grew up in addiction and toxic environment, although she's been clean for 23 years now.
Mm-hmm.
She looks like a 23-year-old though.
I know, right?
So you started when you were
She'll tell you her
newborn?
secret in a little in a little while. She will tell you why she looks like that. I'll ask her.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So, we will discuss the kind of process that she has found to truly find forgiveness and be able to love not only herself without judgment, but because of her experience with her mother. And we will hear her share her mission because she's an ordained minister.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, she teaches a course in miracles.
Mm-hmm.
And her mission, hang on one second. We will hear her mission, a place called the Meeting Space and the Recovery Store, where there is a children's room and everything for parents in addiction and recovering from addiction to find a new way so more children don't need to go through what she did.
Oh, yeah.
Our guest, Miss Lisa J. Trevino.
Hey, Lisa.
The 23-year-old.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for saying yes to being here. I've thought of you for a long time, but I postponed it until the right time showed up and said, here it is. And so...
Feels good.
Yes.
So thank you.
It feels right. So our title is When You Can't can't run to mama because we've been talking about different mothers for the past 3 weeks. The other kind, would be someone who doesn't have who's not
Maternal.
yes, that too.
Maternal instinct.
Or someone who's not married, someone who's a mother who has secrets, like she was raped, or she was I know she has deep secrets from the past. A mother who wants to leave something for children without the dad, something like that. So
Not the typical mother.
not the typical one. So you're also a fur mama.
A fur
I
mama.
love that.
Yeah. I have fur babies. Yes.
Yes. And then, so I would like our listeners to hear how you coped with the mama issue, if you had any. So, the mama issue. Sorry, my cord is tangled. Okay, go ahead, Miss Lisa.
Okay. So a little backstory. So when I was born, my mother didn't really want to have me. She really believed that within the year of getting married to my dad that she had made a mistake, and she really wanted to get a divorce. But they had a big wedding, and the time period of that, and the way my mother's relationship was with her mother, in her mind, she's told me that it wasn't something that she felt she could do. So she was going to give it a year and see, and if it didn't get better, then maybe she would have the conversation with everybody. Only she got pregnant.
Okay.
And when she got pregnant, this was not much past when Roe versus Wade was approved.
The abortion case. Yes.
And abortions were now happening, but by far it was not acceptable. And to this day, it's very controversial.
Yes,
but it was way more controversial then. And so my mom had that as well. And so she did what a lot of people did back then. She told herself, maybe this is what we need. And maybe this baby will fix things. Maybe it'll get better. And so she had me, but she really struggled because, as with anyone, I know in my own life that if I'm not really truly all on board with something, if I have any inner conflict, it is going to give me a very rocky experience.
And that's what she had.
And so she did. She didn't like having to take care of me, and she didn't like being alone, which she was. And anyway, so I do believe, though, that because I've seen the baby pictures, and I see the look on her face, and I do believe that she felt something good. I do believe that she was like into that part of the experience. I don't believe that she regretted it right then, and that resonates with me. But she subsequently ended up doing that, and my mom was a former model. As part of what she did, she was extremely athletic and very social and loved to dance and stuff. And she ended up starting to gain weight, and she would start to feel very isolated and a lot of regret and depression, and didn't really have the tools to be able to handle that. So she regretted more and more and more having me. And so the start of my life, and I really am wanting to talk more about my experience than necessarily hers, but that particular part was necessary to understand why the weight and the magnitude of like what my earliest memories were.
Okay.
My parents were already, my dad was already sleeping with other people. It's just my dad had told me that the first presents that I got in the hospital as a newborn were from his mistress.
Okay.
So, and my mom wasn't privy to this for a really long time, and I only know because he bragged about it later, and like so dumb, but whatever. Yeah. So anyway, there was this feeling from my earliest memory that I wasn't wanted. And she would say that. She would say that she regrets having me. She would tell me that, and she would say it in heated frustration.
And how,
you know, that
how'd
I
you
wish
feel?
I never had you. I wish you know, like you ruined my life, and stuff like that. So years later, my sister and I had broken into her room, and because she always had her bedroom door locked, and she isolated away from the family all the time. It was one of the things that I experienced as a child, was a completely unavailable maternal figure.
Okay.
And like even when she was around me, she would be in her own headspace. But but normally she was either around you, like with this, stay away from me, or she was behind a locked door of her bedroom. And so we wanted to know what was so important in there. And so we broke in, and, you know, I'm going through drawers, she's going through drawers, and my sister found her diary. And I think there's nothing more of a psychic punishment to doing a bad thing, like breaking into somebody else's room, and than to read something like I read. My sister said, "Oh, look, Lisa, you're in this, and this is about you." And I remember how I felt. I remember everything about that day. I remember where I was standing in her room, everything. And I remember this feeling, don't look at this,
Okay.
you know?
Yeah.
But I wasn't listening to intuition back then.
Okay.
And I listened, and I looked at it. And I don't even know if my intuition was telling me, don't look at it. I think my intuition was just saying, danger, like there's about to be something. Wow. So I ended up reading it, and it said in print, you know, because of course it's her diary.
Yeah,
she's
of course.
struggling.
Yes.
You know, she's needing to write about this, and she's writing about how she regrets having me, and that it kind of firmly planted her into this marriage, and she didn't want to be in, and she really felt like she made the wrong decision. And this is something adult me possibly could have handled, but child me, no. Absolutely not.
Wow.
No, because that made me fully believe that not only was I unwanted, but that I did something wrong by being here.
Wow.
You know, like that I have that kind of power to, with whatever's wrong with me, to be born against my mother's will, ruin her life, and yeah, and that I shouldn't be here.
So you carried all that.
So simultaneously, though, I had another experience, because I'm asking very, very big questions to the universe at a very young age, like, why am I here then? Things that a lot of people don't ask until they're much older.
Well, how old
to
were
that
you?
degree.
Yeah. How old were you?
I was really young. I would like to say I was definitely somewhere around 8, 9, like, you know, like when I really like got to that point. So I had this other experience, and this was an incredibly good experience. It was this intuition that said I'm supposed to be here. And so I started to fantasize about the life I was going to live, that I was going to help people to not experience this from a really young age. And I knew there was a reason for it, like that I was supposed to be there. And I would get these intuitive conversations that would happen out of nowhere, and but it didn't make my experience better. It just gave me
a glimpse
of something else, and that there may be something else. So now I'm really split. My mind's split. You know, like it says in the Course of Miracles, I am like, this is the epitome of split. I am supposed to be here. I feel it spiritually. And yet, somehow, I am a child who ruined my mother's life. And, you know, when you're wanting to know who you are as a child, you look to your parents as mirrors, and you bang up against them, and you say no, or you say that's not, or you disagree with them or something. And how they take that, if they take it personally, if they shame you, if they judge you, if they push you away, if they distantiate, you know, if they attack you, if they hit you, if they try to control you, if they gaslight you, if all those things happen to you, your self-image and your ability to trust yourself will be completely shaken. And so I'm very grateful that I did have that intuitive voice, because even if I wasn't totally listening to it, because my head was quickly filling up with lots of shame tapes and guilt tapes and fear tapes and whatever. So I was experiencing both. I was very grateful to at least have that seed of maybe not, maybe there's something else. And so, yeah, so that's how that started with my mother. And I will say, like you had said earlier, you know, what happens when you can't run to mama? You know, do you run to daddy? And I didn't have that either. My dad was also in addiction, you know, and is also, you know, very, very busy. And the two of them were not feeling their feelings, not facing their stuff, completely in their own worlds, and hoping the other person was maybe doing the parenting. I don't know. But so I spent a lot of time alone. And I'll say this last thing. One could say that's horrible that this girl spent all that time alone. But actually, it was and it wasn't, because I was asking some questions and really being in the experience of my childhood in ways that I felt later have become incredibly valuable for my mission, to be able to speak to and understand the narrative and the programming that goes into addiction and self-harm and abusive behavior, and why it goes generation to generation, and how we could break the chain.
Did you go through all that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mia, do you have something?
Yeah, I was just wondering if your mother, you said, planted the you were the reason why she had to stay within the marriage. You had a sister, though.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and a brother.
So that's two other.
Yeah.
So my
to the
sister
family.
and my brother came a year and a half, and then 3 years later. So we were all a year and a half apart, and supposedly we're all born on birth control.
How's that again?
Oh,
really?
Yeah.
My dad actually said that one of us should be a radio station, if like picking up some sort of like, because we're all born on birth control, supposedly, because I don't really know, you know, like my dad says that wasn't true, and my mom says that's what happened, and I wasn't there. So
I mean, did they experience the things that you've experienced?
Who?
Your brother and your sister?
I feel like my sister and I got the brunt of it from my mother. But my sister had a better experience with my dad, and my sister also had me. And so while I could never be like a mother to her, because I'm only a year and a half older than her, I was in a lot of ways everything that I felt like I could be. And she's actually said to me that she felt like I was the only mother she ever knew. I mean, I was trying to feed her. When I was a year and a half years old and she was born, I was trying to feed her, you know, and I actually slapped my dad's mother, my grandmother, for trying to feed her, because it was my job. Like, that's how I felt. I felt like I was the mother, my childhood, and that's another reason why I felt like I didn't have a childhood, is because, like, I was, by the time I was 8, I was definitely already, that's it, I'm an adult. And, but yeah, but my brother, I feel like, came out the least scathed. I feel. I mean, he had definitely had some stuff happen, but I feel like he had 2 older sisters, and he, you know, he wasn't a mirror target of my mother. You know, my mother, women tend to see their daughters,
right,
you know, as competition, right, and also bringing up their own stuff about themselves, whereas, you know, they won't project that onto a son, you know. And so I feel like my brother came out with less, but my mom didn't go after my brother the way that she went mentally to my sister and I. So yeah. Wow.
Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. If you have questions, go ahead and type your questions on the app, and Kuya Yo will be reading or feeding us with the questions you have for Lisa. So we'll take a break right now, even though it's a little bit early, because after this break, we'd like to know how you processed went into healing and how you are healed right now. So let's take a very short break with you and our sponsor too. Listen to our sponsor, Miss Mia here.
Moving to Vegas? There's no better time than now. Where can you find a 3-bedroom home with a balcony and patio? With upgraded flooring, all appliances included, newly painted, move-in ready. With a community park and pool for under $400,000. Not to mention that it is so convenient to shopping, schools, entertainment. And of course, what is Vegas without the Strip? So what are you waiting for? Call Benjamina today at 702-281-9063. Mia is also on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. You can also visit www.benjaminamiacasino.com and view available homes anytime. Remember, the house wins when you bet on Benjamina Mia Casino.
Just like a friend from back home. This is your Filipino radio experience in Las Vegas. PHLV Radio. PHLV Radio.
Righty, we hope you're having a nice lunch right now, even though our story is a little bit interesting and it might trigger some of you. But it's important that you're triggered, though, because that means it's coming up for healing. All right, so at this point, we'd like to listen to Lisa, how she got healed from, or she's still in the healing process. There are still areas, I'm sure, that are not completely healed, just like me. There are areas in myself, in my life, that are not completely healed. But it's shorter now. The time for recognition of the errors and the mistaken thoughts are shorter. So, yep. Okay, so our guest is Miss Lisa Trevino. She's an ordained minister, and she's a teacher of A Course in Miracles, and she happens to be my mentor.
Oh,
Yay!
thank you.
All right, Miss Lisa, go ahead. How did you heal?
So I really feel like we don't heal alone, as the Course in Miracles says, and it's really about understanding from a different perspective what's going on with somebody else and seeing yourself in that. Because the disease of alcoholism and dysfunction goes generation to generation to generation. And it goes generation to generation to generation because each level of each person ends up accepting it as the way it is.
Oh, yes.
They normalize it. And it's very easy to normalize it when you look at the family tree and you see that everybody's doing that, or at least enough people to go, okay. And so you can rationalize and say, well, who has a perfect childhood anyway? And being a mother, you can rationalize and justify that, at least I'm better than my mother in your own mind. And I do feel like the difference between my sister and I and my mother is that we also grew up in a generation where self-help was a lot more prevalent and acceptable, and people were questioning these things more. we were allowed to start speaking about it as a society, and in the United States anyway, and there was a lot more focus on that. I sincerely wanted to understand my mother anyway, and I was like a little therapist because I was trying to fix her so that she could turn around and then be capable of being my mother. Yeah. So while that definitely did not work, it gave me a lot more insight so that when I was ready to start the forgiveness process, I was already seeing. And plus, there's so many times where, because it does go generation to generation, the programming, if left unchanged, is going to give you the same result. I would find myself saying or doing things that made me remind myself of her. And
yeah,
while that infuriated me, it also gave me the gift of identification and saw that, you know, it's not her, it's what she believes. It's what she believes, it's what she's accepted, it's what she's not faced, it's what the energy she stores. And if she hadn't been doing all that and had a different programming, a different experience, perhaps she would have turned out differently, and I would have had a different experience. And so, you know, there's this saying in Al-Anon, which is a program for friends and family of alcoholics. There's a saying that to love the person and hate the disease. And so, and in A Course in Miracles, we know that, you know, we are these souls, these spirits, this consciousness, having a body experience.
A human experience.
A human experience, that we're not the human experience, the human having the spiritual experience, right? So there's two levels to what we're experiencing. And so my forgiveness of my mother doesn't at all say that this is how we are supposed to behave in this world. But it does say, I understand how if you have that programming in those wounds and you haven't faced them and started healing them, that you're going to keep experiencing the effects of it. Your coping mechanisms are going to keep you separate from other people, and they're going to keep you stuck in the walls you build.
Yeah.
And if you have kids or family or anybody that could be affected by that because you're not able to really truly express yourself and be at peace yourself, then you're going to keep feeling like it's other people. And it's important for us to take responsibility and go within. And so I feel like it's not necessarily that everybody in our generation has done this, but I do feel like, you know, at least I know my sister and I have faced some heavy things about ourselves and really questioned our thinking and gone about in totally different methods. You know, she's not into the same things I'm into, and yet we're on the same path of healing and freeing ourselves from the chains. And I will say this too, just because you grew up in an environment where you had no positive maternal example doesn't mean that you are going to be doomed to being a bad parent. Because my sister is an incredible mother, and she did not have any positive example, but she did have a lot of what not to do, and she and she has faced a lot of stuff, and we're all works in progress, but it's beautiful to see the love and the way that she cares for her son.
I have a question, Lisa. You said you're 23 years sober, so you went into alcoholism.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I started with addiction at the earliest ages. My first addictions being some isolated sexual stuff, I'll say it that way, and some food addiction, you know. And my mom had food addiction, my dad had food addiction, my dad had a whole bunch of other addictions, and you know, my mom ended up, you know, getting very big, at a very young age for me, and so I've had body image issues. I mean, and I've also had really bad food addiction, and then I had drugs, alcohol, sex work, codependency, and I've had to heal a lot of stuff.
Oh my God.
And so, like, being in recovery helps me to realize that the substances and the behaviors were never the problem. The problem was my thinking. And so, and that is universal. I know we all think that, well, you would drink too, or you would eat too, if you had my life and my childhood and blah, 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 blah. But it's actually not an event that makes us do things. It's our interpretation of the event and the energy that we're holding on to. And so forgiveness isn't something we do for somebody else. It's not something we do, although it does release people, other people in your life. It's really, it's necessary for any kind of real sanity. Because if I'm holding on to...
the word sanity, yes.
If I'm holding on to any toxic thinking in relation to another person, whatever it is that I believe that person has wronged me, I am going to be carrying that into every experience of my life and interpreting every interaction based on whether or not somebody is even hinting that they are going to do whatever it is that somebody else did. And so it behooves me to find out what's really going on so I could stop being a victim in it and really get empowered.
So how did you shift from your addictions? Like, what triggered the shift for you? To leave them?
To leave them? Well, some of them nearly killed me. And gave me no choice. But, you know, the mind that looks to self-medicate and not feel its feelings will find whatever it takes to do that, to accomplish it. Even just being busy can be its own way of avoiding facing and feeling feelings. And so what happens is that we experience a bottom. And a bottom isn't necessarily that you lose a job or somebody threatens to leave you or you get warned by your doctor that you're about to have liver failure or some other physical consequence. A bottom actually is when your experience of your life has finally become intolerable to you. And that's the moment that all the energy that's been put into one more this, one more that, I'll deal with this later, stops. And you face that and you say, you know, I have no idea what's on the other side of this, but there has to be another way.
And so your other way, let's say for your food addiction, you became vegan. You're now a vegan. No? No, vegan had nothing to do with food addiction. Oh, really?
Yeah, nothing to do with it. I could definitely be a food addict and be vegan. It does not fix anything like that. No, interestingly enough, I feel like food addiction, so there's some addictions you could stop doing the substance or the behavior because you're never needing to really be exposed to it anyway. Like if somebody's addicted to alcohol or cocaine or something like that, they could put the substance aside and really focus on their recovery and have a clear delineation there. But when you have something like workaholism or codependency or food addiction, these are things you have to face on a daily basis. You sleep with it. You wake with it, you know, and you have to eat. So your whole relationship with food has to change, and your motives for eating, your reasons for eating. And so there's levels and layers, and it goes, and I'm still learning so much about, you know, so it's, there's never just, I have this, even though people think this, but this is erroneous. There's never just that I have this particular addiction, and this is my problem. Because there's a thing called the merry-go-round of denial, and there's all these different parts that make the addiction keep going. There is your relationships with other people where it gets enabled and everything like that. And so,
yeah, go ahead.
What happened?
I think we just lost a bit of the video, but go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, you're still on air. We are broadcasting also on radio, so it's okay.
So, it's helpful to understand that the problem is always in the mind. It's not with a substance. It just happens to be that that particular substance or behavior is where it's showing up. And thank God it's showing up. Like you were saying earlier, if you're triggered, good, because if it's on its way up, it's on its way out. Mm-hmm. Well, if it's showing up in part of your life where it's creating a problem for you in your work, in your health, in your weight, in your personal relationships, in your peace of mind, in your sleep, in your whatever, then it's there as like an alarm to let you know that there's something deeper going on that's getting to a level that if you don't look at it, you will get to a place where you have to. And so that's what happens. And so over time, you know, I don't really want to get to the worst bottom, you know, like you get so excited with the freedom you get on the other side of it that you start to really want to do all the looking and the facing, and you start to realize that your feelings are not going to kill you, and that the stories you told yourself about what a horrible person you are not really true. And you can start getting more true self-esteem because you're letting go of and questioning all these shame tapes and guilt tapes that are in your own mind. And by doing that, you gain a certain kind of momentum where even though, and I'm not saying I'm 100% healed, because I'm not done. I don't think anybody's done. I feel like, and maybe they are. Maybe I just haven't met them. But I like being in the progress of it. I like being in the learning, you know, just keep seeing where I have blocks and seeing where something comes up. And so now when something comes up and says, hey, this is a problem, something's going on with you, these are things I would never have noticed before because they're like little bumps, you know, whereas before I had like big, huge mountains, right? And so, but I don't want to, I want peace so badly and I want freedom so badly and I want to keep waking up that those little bumps, I'm like the princess in the pea. Like I will feel it and I will not feel it. So like I have to. And I can't check out. I can't go and do something because I'm aware that I'm just postponing and building energy and making it something that I'm going to have to face.
Yeah. Wow. Mia.
Did you tackle all those addictions all at the same time?
No. Yeah. No, I have a loving God. I mean, you know, like drugs and alcohol, you know, all of them had to go at once because if you're self-medicating with like pot, when you're saying you're sober from alcohol, you're still changing how you feel to such a way that how are you, like if you didn't have pot, would you go back to alcohol? You know, so it's just like switching seats on the Titanic.
You're still thinking.
You're still avoiding. However, I would have to say that, you know, I've been free of drugs longer than alcohol. Alcohol was a relapse in 1999, and it was dumb. And I was drinking because I was trying to prove to a guy that I was dating that he doesn't love me. It was so stupid. And there's nothing smart about alcoholism, but that was like really stupid. And so 23 years, you know, clean and sober from that. I would have to say that workaholism, sex addiction, and codependency, those guys definitely have been a longer process, but so exciting to be free of. And smoking, I smoked cigarettes for 10 years, and I believe I quit 18 years ago. I'm not sure. And that was interesting. And even when I quit smoking, I knew that I was going to get back into the food a little bit. And my intuition told me, and I just was like, I loved myself. I said, well, I have to quit smoking. So I quit smoking. I kept working on healing, and I did get a little bit into the food, and I went right into an Overeaters Anonymous meeting so that I could deal with it. You know what I mean? Not to say, okay, because I know about the switching seats and the smorgasbord and stuff like that. So yeah, nothing ever really happens like that at once anyway, because the programming in the mind is different for each addiction. Even though the core programming is anywhere but here, anybody but now, anytime but now, anybody but you, anybody but me. Like, it's just
Denial.
like you just want to get out of your skin. It's still that same, I'm so uncomfortable, I have to change the way I feel. There's certain other programming, depending on your addiction, that or your affliction. And there's subtle little beliefs about yourself. Like, let's say it's workaholism, right? You could have a belief that you're never going to have what you need unless you work that amount. Or that nobody's ever going, or your dad called you lazy, or something, and you're outrunning something that's in your own mind, you know? And so there's a saying in Course in Miracles, infinite patience produces immediate results. Like, stop running, stop checking out, stop doing all the things, and just have a conversation with yourself and maybe someone else who knows what you're doing, and say, this is what I'm really thinking right now. This is what I'm really feeling right now. And this is why I'm so uncomfortable, and start to shine the light on what is driving the bus.
Yeah.
And so that's really it. And this is really about forgiving my mother. I had to fire my mother from being my mother, because I was continuously trying to be the daughter that I thought I needed to be to get her to be the mother that I thought she needed to be. And so whenever I would talk to her and she would complain about anything, I would immediately go into therapist mode. And and I was so toxic. I would get off the phone frustrated and angry, and people would be like, why are you even talking to her? And so I prayed about it, and I got guided to do that. And I actually got guided also to tell her, like, this is what I need to do. So this is the boundary we have to start off with. If we want each other in each other's lives, I need for us to you to not complain to me, and I need, because I need you to you know, she was actually going to some recovery stuff and going to therapy stuff, but I need you to bring that there and not to me anymore. And I will keep you in my life as a friend, and but I knew it's not the kind of it's not the kind of relationship where I could turn to her and ask her advice, or I can't be open. And to this day, I know this. I can't be open to her opinion about anything, or look to seek any kind of guidance from her. I never had parents that I could seek guidance from, and I had to grieve that. I had to grieve the fantasy of the childhood that I didn't have, and also recognize, and I think this is really important because we're also airing in the Philippines, like, there's this culture programming too, and we have this idea of how mothers are supposed to be, and like ridiculous, extreme expectations that nobody could actually really live their life and live up to. And so, rather than lamenting and comparing my mother to some imaginary mother who bakes cookies and tells me how wonderful I am and brushes my hair all the time, you know, like, but I'm not comparing her to her, but just saying, you know, the only reason why I have the story that she's supposed to have been from me, from my experience, well, maybe I had the experience I was supposed to have for what my soul was here to do in this life. And I forgave the story of it. I realized that, you know, to tell myself it should have been different and that I should have had something else is to constantly feel like a victim of not just my mother, but God and the universe and everything. And I just said, well, maybe it was exactly what it was supposed to be, because now, you know, I've created the meeting space and the recovery store.
I was going to ask about that.
And this place has 121 meetings a week. It has 2 anger management classes, one for men, one for women. It has a children's playroom that is soundproof and glass enclosed. It has a store that has like 22,000 different products in it, and all for people healing from addiction or childhood abuse or codependency or anything.
Shopping,
and also to celebrate.
And
we have like thousands of people that come through there, and the general energy and the vibe of it all is people all focused on the solution, whether they like it or not. Some people are court mandated to be there, but even that is a God shot that they're not aware of yet, because their life's about to get different. And you know, and so I feel like in my ministry, it's all about wanting to help people recognize what the real problem is, that it's not outside of them, and that it's really, what we think we believe, what we believe we give energy to, and that gives us our feelings about it. And then if we keep it, even if it doesn't resonate, we're not going to be at peace. And so we're going to experience the world like that through those eyes. And until we're willing to have a shift in perception, until we're willing to start over and to look, we're going to keep having the same experience and believe it. So I'm very at peace about. I don't hold anything against my mother anymore. I could talk to her on the phone. We talk to each other, and I ask her how she's doing. She asks how I'm doing, and we share things. And I appreciate that there's that kind of forgiveness. I don't need her to be there for me.
And did you need her to say sorry?
I did.
Okay.
I wanted it so
And
badly.
did she?
She did do something for me. I'm not sure she's really aware of. There was so much gaslighting and so much emotional abuse, and then there was physical abuse too, but through my father, and a whole bunch of stuff happened in my childhood. But there was. I think the thing that I felt like I always wanted was for her to take responsibility and acknowledge that this stuff happened, and not tell me that didn't happen, because I feel like that was the part that took the longest for me to work out, because I had a hard time really truly trusting my truth and my intuition when the person that knew me the longest was telling me that it wasn't true and I was making it up or exaggerating or something like that. So she ended up finally kind of hearing me, and I would tell her what happened, and she never said I'm sorry, which I had to really go what do you really need that for? What do you really need that for, Elise? What's going on? But what she did do, even though she would later say, oh, I don't remember that, I don't remember us talking about it, so it's kind of weird, but denial does that. It's denial. She would say, I'm sorry you had that experience, and I remember thinking, well, that's probably as good as I'm gonna get,
All right.
But and then later we would talk about it, and she'd be like, I don't remember you telling me about that, and I'd be like, oh, God bless America. But you know what? What do I really need her to say she's sorry for? That's her own journey for herself.
Right.
I want to say this last thing, because I feel like this was so important in my healing that I don't ever hear anybody talk about this that much. Everything that happened in my childhood happened, a lot of it, in just an instant. And I created story that I built on after story that I built on, and I wore it like a cloak. I would tell it to people. I would use it as excuses. I would use it to manipulate men to give me things and feel sorry for me. And I would feel sorry for myself, and I would tell myself the story. And it's this dirge I sing that the Course of Miracles would call it. And I would just rehash it over and over and over again. And I would keep getting suicidal and depressed, or just isolated and feeling alone and a victim. And it was really difficult to feel any kind of empowerment and self-love and inspiration when the radio station that you're listening to is Lisa's story over and over and over again.
Lisa's pity me party.
The pity pot. And but it was involved, and it was detailed, and it was well written, and it was in my voice. So it was my favorite station, and so I listened to it all the time as you listen to your favorite song, and so I had to be willing to recognize that how much of my misery was because I was holding on to that story and just building it and rehashing it and nurturing it like a baby and just holding it close and just never wanting to be wrong. And if somebody says maybe that didn't happen that way, I would push back and say, you don't know, you weren't there. And while some of the events happened, they happened. Rapes happened, physical abuse happened, spine injuries happened, all kinds of stuff happened. But my interpretation of it and what it meant to me, that was what I was doing. That's if you say my part and my own misery would be my unwillingness to look at it, question it, and forgive. And again, forgiveness doesn't mean that you're saying you choose that as a good experience for yourself, or that the other person is good for doing that. You're basically saying, you know, I understand that this happened and I know why it happened on your side. But I'm going to stop hurting myself over this, because holding on to this is making something that happened over a short period of time, or even my whole childhood, some of it, and it's making it my whole life.
Yes.
You know, and I have people in my life that are people I could talk to and turn to, and people that I get together with once a week, and we really talk about our ahas and our miracles. And you know, I have people in my life that are focused on the truth and healing, and this is my tribe, you know, and anybody wants to join can join it. All you have to do is want to heal and to be helpful.
Right. Wow. And even being here, no, Mia, being here, you're now a part of whoever is listening. You're already a part of their healing, if they so want to be healed, just by listening. You know, the seed that we're planting here is, like I said, we are your holding space for conversations that would bring about transformation, right? So the meeting space is where conversations also happen. And the address would be at
6115 South Rainbow Boulevard, on the corner of Rainbow and Patrick. It's in the southwest side of Las Vegas. We take up about 2/3 of a retail strip.
You said there are over 120 meetings right now?
121 meetings.
121 meetings.
For Alcoholics Anonymous, codependency, adult children of alcoholics, sex addiction, cocaine addiction, crystal meth, Narcotics Anonymous, Debtors Anonymous. We have a anorexic and bulimic meeting starting soon.
Wow.
Like everything. Al-Anon and Nar-Anon for people, family and friends of people who are addicted or conflicted, and we just keep growing. It's very important, and as long as it's supposed to be there, it'll be there.
Yeah.
This is church-based?
No, it's spiritual. Yeah, you can believe in God or not believe in God. There are atheists that attend too. There's Buddhists. We have a refuge recovery meeting for people who just want the Buddhist path. We have a Course in Miracles there. We have basically the paths are all, what they all have in common is that they get you in touch with your intuition. And everybody has intuition, and so you don't have to call it God. But the point is that if we're not listening to our intuition, we're not really being truly ourselves and our authentic selves at that. And we're not going to be at peace. We're going to be running on some story that we think we need to do and be in this world.
Right.
And so any belief, even if you do, and your belief is of a Christian God, you can go there. And so there's all walks of life, all belief systems, and some of them end up changing for a person while they're there.
Yeah. Well, I was looking up last night. We have a few minutes left. I said, we probably don't have AA in the Philippines, but I did look, and we do have.
Yeah.
And mostly in the Visayas, it's in Cebu and Leyte. I did not see Iloilo, but there's also Emotions Anonymous, and I'd like to acknowledge.
We have that too. Yeah.
I'd like to acknowledge Lisa, because I think that was last year or 2 years ago when we got materials for Emotions Anonymous, and we forwarded it to Davao City, and it's going on.
Oh,
the
nice.
Emotions Anonymous,
Good
yes,
job.
they're running it. So Lisa here is part of that process, because she provided the literature for that.
That's good to hear.
So we want to thank you so much, Lisa, for giving your time here. I know
Well, thank you for
you're
having
very
me. I love
busy.
this. So
Is there
yeah.
a fee to attend those classes? Or?
It's a donation basis.
Okay.
People generally put a couple bucks in the basket to pay for rent or meeting expenses like books and stuff. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
there's no charge.
And interestingly, the meeting spaces remained open during the pandemic. The governor deemed it as an necessity.
Essential business.
Yes,
Yeah, the
essential
recovery
business.
store had to close, and the meeting space was limited, of course, to the distance and the 10 people per room. But it was great because we were able to catch people who were not able to stay sober. And there are people who had really had heavy PTSD that are still sober to this day, and I see them, and they're just miracles to me. There are people that had a lot of recovery that would come and be with the people that were struggling, and some of them homeless, and it's just, the whole thing is just, to me, it's changed my definition of success. You know, I don't have money like I used to, for sure, because it all went during COVID. But it's just to just know that there are people that are waking up and they're grateful that they have a safe place to go to facilitate that. That fills me in a way that that little 8-year-old girl wanted.
Oh, see, that's healing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so this is a very fitting, your story, Lisa, is very fitting for our episode today.
Yes, very much.
And it is now 1:01. And where did time go?
Where do you go when you can't run to mama? You go to the meeting space.
Thank you.
Okay. So is there anything else you would like to say before, to quote, who was that? You might not be able to go to sleep tonight if you hold back on this particular thing that you want to say. So anything you want to say?
I would like to say that if you grew up in any kind of dysfunction and you feel like you can't live the life that you were meant to because of it, please know that there are people that are having these miracle experiences and shifting and physically healing and emotionally and mentally healing. And if you are a mother who feels regret for maybe something that you did when you were overwhelmed or not capable to really show up the way you felt you did, please know that the consciousness, everything that you can do to take the moment and really heal each part of that will change the experience overall, and you're worth it.
Yes.
No matter what you've ever done or have had done to you, you're worth it. And you may not believe me, but if you start the process of self-forgiveness and healing your mind, you will get to a place where you will say, that's what she meant.
Okay.
Very nice.
I'm about to say amen. All right? Okay. I'll just say that.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you so
you,
much.
Lisa.
I hope you learned so much from this episode today. And we'll see you again next week. Mia?
Yes, for my final words from Mel Robbins, forgive others not because they deserve forgiveness, but you deserve peace.
Yes.
Oh, there you
Beautiful.
go. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Mia. Thank you.
Thank
Lisa.
you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone.
See you next
See you
week.
next week here on The Dot. Bye.
Bye.
Moving to Vegas? There's no better time than now. Where can you find a 3-bedroom home with a balcony and patio? With upgraded flooring, all appliances included, newly painted, move-in ready. With a community park and pool for under $400,000. Not to mention that it is so convenient to shopping, schools, entertainment. And of course, what is Vegas without the Strip? So what are you waiting for? Call Benjamina today at 702-281-9063. Mia is also on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. You can also visit www.benjaminamiacasino.com and view available homes anytime. Remember, the house wins when you bet on Benjamina Mia Casino.
is your Filipino radio experience in Las Vegas. PHLV Radio.